We have a lot of news to cover today, including the latest speculation out of Philadelphia after a State of the Franchise press conference today with the GM and ownership. Which players are they likely to keep as a core group, and which players are they likely to move before the deadline? We'll get into all that. Plus, Elliot Friedman speculated that the Oilers may have their eye on Blues goalie Ville Husso, and could the Red Wings trade young forward Filip Zadina to get a fresh start? We have that, as well as some injury updates, news on the waiver wire coming up next. Well, welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news, rumors to talk about here today. Let's get started first up with some injury updates. We got some updates from Dominic Ducharme and the Montreal Canadiens earlier today. Apparently, Habs forward Jonathan Drouin suffered an upper body injury and will be out indefinitely now. Drouin has been one of the guys that's been named by a variety of NHL insiders as being somebody who's generated enough interest heading into the deadline, with the Habs likely rebuilding or retooling here, that they could have moved, but this injury very well could have an impact on that depending on how long he's out. Where it's listed as indefinite, that tells us that at this point it's not really clear how long it's going to take, so we don't really know an exact timeline on his return. We also got an update today on Carey Price. Really, it's not a significant one. Essentially, he's finally starting to make some progress with the knee injury on the rehab. He does want to play this year, according to what the Canadiens are saying, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be anytime soon. Clearly, his plan was to play long before this, is what they're saying, but he had some, I guess, combination of just the knee taking longer to heal. He had to wait for appointments to be rescheduled with the surgeon, and it didn't exactly say like setbacks, but it just sounds like things are just not going as planned, I guess you could say. But they have indicated that he wants to play and is working hard to try to come back, and that he's finally starting to make more progress. So it's not really clear if or when he's going to play, but at least we've heard them say that he wants to and is making progress. That's the first positive update we've really had on Carey Price in quite some time. Now, goaltender Aaron Dell of the Buffalo Sabres has a hearing today. I don't know the outcome of that hearing as I record this video. Certainly, if there's any information comes out before I post this, check the pinned comment down below here at the top of the comment section, and we'll see. But he's definitely getting suspended after a really unnecessary BS play last night against Senators forward Drake Batherson. Batherson was going to cut around the net. Dell had come out to play the puck, and he basically set a pick and even kind of threw his shoulder into Batherson to throw him off stride. Drake went into the boards awkwardly and hard and has suffered I guess they're calling it an ankle injury. It looks like a high ankle sprain, which is almost worse than a break. Those things can linger for some time. Drake Batherson was supposed to be going to his very first All-Star game. I know it's young into his career, but he was certainly, on pace to have a career season, and really was having an impact year for Ottawa. He was their leading scorer. Many people would say he's been their best all-around forward this season as well. So it's a big blow to a team that's been playing a lot better hockey lately and trying to get more wins in the win column and kind of, work their way back to more respectability and higher a spot in the standings. So that's a big blow for Batherson, who's unfortunately going to miss the All-Star game. Captain Brady Tkachuk will replace him. That's already been announced. But it's just a really unnecessary, unfortunate play. And if you look back, Aaron Dell actually has a history of making body contact with skaters when it's not really legal or necessary at all. He pulled the exact same stunt a few years back when he was in San Jose against Mark Stone, formerly of the Ottawa Senators. He was with Vegas shortly after his arrival in Vegas at the time. And he's had other contacts with players too. So it's certainly something he needs to get out of his game. But to be honest, the way he's playing, I don't think he's going to be in the league long. It might actually be more punishment for the Buffalo Sabres to let Aaron Dell continue to play than it will be to force him to sit out. But at the same time, they are scrambling for goaltenders. So Craig Anderson's hurt, not, close to being back yet. We don't know when he'll be back, but it shouldn't be too long, but he's still a ways away. Malcolm Subban's likely done for the season. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is injured and a ways out. Like, they're likely down to Dell and Michael Hauser. They might have to sign somebody from their AHL or minor league team to a two-way deal so they can call them up or have some sort of emergency backup for a game or two. I don't know what the Buffalo Sabres are going to do. It really boils down to how many games Dell's going to end up being suspended for. I think it's probably going to be, I'm going to guess 2 or 3, because he does have a history of this. I don't know if he's ever been warned or fined before. I couldn't find that information, so we'll see on that when player safety makes their announcement, but certainly something you just terribly hate to see. A young guy goes down, gets hurt, totally unnecessary and really dumb on the part of Aaron Dell. Of course, the Sabres at this point were losing, but it wasn't too bad in the game. Senators won 5-0, but this was early enough in the game. I think it was 2 or 3-0 at the time when the play took place late in the first period. Now, we also got news today on the NHL waiver wire. We have 2 players on waivers. One is Chicago with Brett Connolly. Not a huge surprise there. Of course, he's been through the waiver wire before. Obviously, he needs waivers every so often if he has any chance to play or remain on a taxi squad. So he likely won't get claimed as an unfavorable contract. Has not played well the last few years. I can't see that happen, but you never know. And Sami Niku of Montreal is on waivers. That's a little more, I guess, a little surprising, but not completely. Of course, Montreal got him from Winnipeg through the same method here. So certainly, Niku could be a guy that's picked up. He's a young defenseman. He's obviously not turned into the prospect that many thought he would over the last number of years, but still a situation where somebody might find value in him or have more of a need than Montreal does, I guess, even though the Habs have been depleted a lot too. It's, unfortunate he wasn't able to take advantage of more of an opportunity and really grab a spot there with some of the other younger guys in the blue line, considering how many guys they've had out this year. But still, Niku on waivers. Be interesting to see if he ends up on another team this season. Now, before we jump into the rest of the video, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Name a better duo than McDavid and Draisaitl this season. I've got one. Manscaped in grooming. That's right, our sponsors at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have all the best tools to clean up your whole act when it comes to your hygiene for men. It's time to skate on the first line with the global leaders here in men's hygiene and join the movement at Manscaped, where you can get the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some fantastic new products just recently launched, including the brand new 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. This is a terrific product. Allows you to wash your hair in one fell swoop, leaves you smelling great. It has a refined cologne quality fragrance attached. Absolutely phenomenal. And of course, the other new product most recently launched is the premium body wash to kind of complete the set. But that's not all. Manscaped has new products coming out here yet again in January, so you want to stay tuned. The body wash gives you deep hydration, keeps you smelling great, and not only smelling great, but feeling moisturized as well. Join the movement at manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. On to the rest of the video. We have word from Elliotte Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts column, wondering if the Red Wings may consider trading Filip Zadina. Zadina would now obviously be 4 years removed from being drafted. Of course, he was in the same NHL draft as Brady Tkachuk, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Andrei Svechnikov, Rasmus Dahlin here back in 2018. Obviously, Zadina was a player who the Red Wings at the time felt had fallen to them because many draft rankings had him ranked higher. So he clearly had a chance to be taken at maybe anywhere from 3, 4, 5. Some had him at 2, not as many there. Obviously, I don't think there was a lot of talk at the time. Dahlin was the firm number 1, and Svechnikov was pretty much the number 2. It was number 3 on, which was the Habs pick. That was the wild card, and which is where they went with Kotkaniemi. Then Ottawa took Tkachuk, and of course Zadina goes after. So Zadina has never really worked into a full-time NHLer with productivity. He's had more of a chance to be a full-timer this year, playing in 40 games. But still, if you're considering the player who went one spot ahead of him in Brady Tkachuk, Brady is obviously on his second, just on his second big contract. He's a captain now, like big difference there. Where Kotkaniemi get a $6 million deal, even though he hasn't played to the level Tkachuk has, but still, Kotkaniemi at least has more NHL games and certainly further along his established career than Zadina has been, but certainly he's still really young. Now, he still had come into the league too with a lot of potential. It's not, something, especially a high pick like that, you don't necessarily see teams giving up all too early, but he's only put up 11 points in those 40 games he's played this year. Last year, I guess he did play somewhat of a full season, mostly as well in 49 games, putting up 19 points, so he's even kind of sort of slacked back a little bit from that too, so you kind of expect more progress where that's not really happening. So I guess we're looking at basically he spent the better part of 2 full years in the minors, developing a bit in year 3, mostly full-time NHL, and this year's full-time NHLer, and he's just not getting the job done. So ultimately, maybe a fresh start is in his future. Maybe the Red Wings find another pick, somebody that's that's valuable, comparable, maybe get a fresh start somewhere else. I'm not sure there's one that really comes to mind that would kind of stick out, but I know there's lots of teams that were interested in Zadina at the time of the draft that would probably be willing to give an opportunity and take a flyer, and if they can get him for the right price. But it's just hard to say what that's going to be. But it'd be interesting to see if the Red Wings do part from that high pick here of Filip Zadina. That was the last draft run by Ken Holland before he moved to Edmonton. So obviously Holland felt at the time that Zadina was kind of a gift and was taken where he was, and I don't think too many people would have disagreed with him at the time. Now, the Elliot Friedman's also made mention that the Oilers apparently have interest in Blues goalie Ville Husso. Now, of course, the Oilers have been widely speculated in the goalie market for some time, largely due to the Mike Smith injury and the inconsistent play of Mikko Koskinen. Stuart Skinner, even though he's going to be needing waivers next year, doesn't really appear to be really ready, not for a full-time role. If he can, call up once in a blue moon for a game here or there, not a big deal, but not on a regular basis, not yet. Koskinen, I will say, the last few games he has battled pretty hard, made some key saves, and even though he's still had the occasional goal that he probably would like back, for the most part he's played better. But the problem with Koskinen is he has these streaks playing well, and he can't seem to handle a heavy workload. So I hope the Oilers don't get overconfident in the fact that they've been able to win a few games lately and he's played better, because that's not guaranteed to last long term, which is the issue with him. But he has battled hard, and certainly I think his teammates appreciate that, and certainly have played better in front of him the last couple of games here as well. But Ville Husso is a guy who's, you might call him a late bloomer, but in the world of goaltenders, it's not entirely unusual. I mean, look at Jordan Binnington and the starting goaltender for the Blues. They're kind of developing a little bit of a goalie controversy the same way Binnington did with Jake Allen. I mean, Binnington came up, outplayed the veteran guy, and eventually took his job. Jake became more of a backup, eventually got traded. And could the same thing happen in St. Louis if they don't trade Ville Husso? They also have youngster Joel Hofer in their system as well, who's a really budding goalie prospect who could have a bright future as well. So the Blues do have that luxury right now. And Husso, certainly fair to say, has outplayed Binnington recently, but it is a small sample size. I don't think the Blues are anywhere near ready to give up on Binnington. I don't think that's the case at all. And I would fully suspect that going into the playoffs, even if more of a goalie controversy develops, that he probably will still be the starting guy come playoff time, or at least it'll be his job to lose, would be my guess. But, I don't know that the Blues going into the playoffs would trade Husso. I understand the Oilers' interest. I understand the Oilers' need. They do need to look around. But there's a lot of teams that are heading for playoffs that have good backups like Husso and Georgiev, etc. That would be great for the Oilers. I understand the interest. The price tag might not be super high. But still, it's a situation where those teams may not want to part unless they feel like they're getting an upgrade at that same position going into the playoffs. So I don't know that that's going to happen. Could it happen in the offseason? Sure, that's a whole different can of worms. But the Blues, like I said, depending on how this year goes, they might want to let this ride out and see. Maybe Binnington isn't the long-term guy anymore. Maybe it is Husso. I mean, it's early to say that. We said the same thing about Binnington and Allen, and could it be the same thing, kind of deja vu, the same thing, a late blooming goaltender have the same sort of effect in St. Louis? It's certainly possible. I know at one point Husso was looked upon as being the successor or the heir apparent to Allen, and then Binnington for some kind of came out of nowhere, so to speak, and worked his way up the depth chart quickly and grabbed a spot and took it. And I'll look at him, right? But he's been struggling a little bit as of late. But, all goalies like that have their stretches, and he's certainly going to battle his way through it and see if they have a good 1A, 1B going into the playoffs. That's not a bad problem to have for the St. Louis Blues. So as much as the Oilers do reportedly have interest, I'm not sure that it takes place. Now, the Philadelphia Flyers had a press conference today with owner Dave Scott from Comcast, as well as Chuck Fletcher, talking basically about the state of the franchise, and they kind of give us a look into the future here, if you will. Dave Scott gave Chuck Fletcher a vote of confidence, saying Chuck is my guy, so certainly it looks like they have no intention of making a GM change. They made it clear that they were not looking at a 3 to 5 year rebuild. In fact, they called it an aggressive retool. So it's certainly we're going to see the Flyers more than likely make some trades, but they're probably bound to see more like a hockey trade like we saw them do last year. For example, when they traded Voracek for Atkinson and when they picked up Ryan Ellis, those types of deals where they're not really necessarily getting younger per se. I mean, they probably want to have a mix of vets and young players. They didn't really make that totally clear, but certainly not something that we expect them to kind of sell off a lot of the vets and go through a rebuild. That's not appear to be in their future. That they made it known that they want to win sooner than later. So they made mention of who they felt their core group of guys were, which includes Sean Couturier, Kevin Hayes, Joel Farabee, and Ryan Ellis. So certainly some big omissions there. Of course, Claude Giroux, we don't really know his long-term future yet, and Fletcher made it perfectly clear, which is no surprise, that whether or not Giroux is traded or not will be entirely up to him. He has a no-move clause. He is expected to meet with his agent over the All-Star break and kind of come to a conclusion on does he want to chase a cup elsewhere, and what teams would he consider so that they can start working on that. And we'll see where that goes, but we don't know exactly what Drew is feeling. A lot of the insiders felt like, based on what they had heard, that he will likely want to go chase a cup, and where he signs next is really up in the air. He could even possibly go back to Philly. We'll see. I mean, Fletcher made it known that Giroux is looked upon as being one of the all-time greats in the Flyers organization, has a shot at having his jersey in the rafters one day, and he sees him as a Hall of Famer. So certainly, a lot of high praise for Giroux, so difficult to see what the future holds, but regardless of what next year beyond brings, Claude Giroux likely does get traded, but he's completely in control of that. They also made mention that two of the four group core guys that they mentioned, Couturier and Ellis, who have been battling injuries this year, are likely done for the year. The owner made it clear that he wants their medical team to get them right for next year, is what they said. He also mentioned that he was giving the Flyers and Chuck a blank check to get things done. So obviously that sounds like spending, dipping into free agency. And they're not afraid to spend to the cap type of comments. They talked about re-signing Rasmus Ristolainen as being a priority. Which I found a little, not totally shocked. They've hit a lot to get him, but I guess we'll see where contract negotiations go on that one. Considering they're going to be spending, I know like one big name, if he makes it to free agency, you're going to see the links. It's going to come up instantly is Johnny Gaudreau, of course, but we don't know. Gaudreau is looking real good this year, and the Flames really probably should try to keep him, but whether or not he hits free agency, we don't know yet. Hard to say, but some interesting names on this team that were not really made to be like, unavailable, like Ivan Provorov, Carter Hart, Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim. Some big names there, like even Atkinson, for example, JVR, we're not mentioned. I mean, JVR's only got 2 years left on the contract this year and next, so probably difficult to move, but say what you want about the guy. He does still find a way to put the puck in the net, and Atkinson's playing well. I wouldn't be shocked if they hang on to him, even though he wasn't mentioned. But like Travis Konechny's not overly old. Certainly a guy that be interest to other teams. Provorov, Elliot Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show today was saying that when it comes to Provorov, he said that it sounds like they're open to trading him, but they still think very highly of him, and they're really confused as to what's happened with him, and that they're going to listen to trade offers for sure, but they're not sure that they want to trade him, so it's not a given that he gets moved, but I think they'll listen. Sanheim, I think, is more of a chance, and even Carter Hart, like, you have to think that they're probably not going to go out and shop him, but again, I think if a team comes calling, you got to think that they will listen, given where the franchise is at and given where what was mentioned. But they're not going to do that unless they feel like they can get another, upgrade, I guess is what you would call it, right? You wouldn't think. They have a good young goalie in Hart. Yes, he's had his ups and downs, but he's still young, still has a lot of potential to be really good. I think he's pretty good considering all things. Who would they go after as a replacement? I really don't know, but I think the Flyers are going to be a very interesting team to watch here with all these names that could be in play. You're bound to see some that are likely going to find their way out the door by the NHL trade deadline. I know a guy like Sanheim would get interest from a lot of teams, always looking for blue liners. Konechny, like I said, a decent winger who can score. You got Provorov, who's paired with the right guy in the right situation, I think he could find his game, but hard to say. And like in some of the other vets back there, in Ristolainen, I think a lot of that's going to depend on the contract negotiations. But the Flyers made it clear, not a rebuild, an aggressive retool with a blank check to spend. So that tells you that look out, they're going to probably see the Flyers linked to a lot of guys going into free agency or even by trade. They're certainly not afraid to try to see what they can do here. I'm not completely convinced this is the right move for them. They kind of sort of almost did, I wouldn't call it a real aggressive, but sort of the same thing last year. They made some pretty significant moves. And look what this year brought them. They didn't turn out any better. They got worse. So, I mean, injuries played a part of it, sure, but other teams getting ahead of them played a part of it too. And I don't know. I'm just not really sure this is the best course of action, but it seems to be the direction that they're taking. So let me know your thoughts on the Flyers and which guys you can see moving before the deadline down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.